Hi everyone, this is Zafar again. So today I wanted to talk about bullying. So bullying in this day and age, we're gonna just jump right into it. Bullying in this day and age has become far more worse than it has ever been. Students of ages before, a decade before this time, and going back and back and back in time far drastically changed from then to now, especially with social media being involved. I think that bullying has become a really big issue among schools, and a lot of the times bullying gets swept under the rug. So today we can just break down the beginning stages of bullying and the actions to take in regards to bullying. So, first, when it comes to bullying in general, most individuals that have issues in school in the first place are obviously dealing with issues not only at home but within themselves. Usually students who are causing issues in class, who want to be the class clown, who want to create disturbances, and who are always getting into fights, those are usually individuals at home who may be dealing with food insecurity, who may be having issues with their parents. Their parents may not be together, they may be divorced, they may have issues with siblings. A lot of things go on where students carry a lot of weight, not only within themselves, but also with their family situations. And they come to school and they don't know how to process these emotions, and they feel like they must act out or receive attention, or they have to confide in others, which is why suicides and self-harm is another really big thing among students dealing with issues within their families, with issues with themselves. And it's something that I have witnessed myself with students expressing to me, who I've been friends with in high school, of them self-harm, their stories of them maybe having eating disorders or things of that nature. And they express their family situations. They don't feel like they're being heard by their parents. And it's just a lot of issues that go on in the home, first and foremost. So, a lot of students that are going through these things, and of course, everyone has different ways of processing trauma. But one of the main ways that a lot of individuals in society in general process trauma, they may emotionally get depressed, they may get sad, and may get upset. They may have thoughts about whatever situation they're going through, and it may really take a toll on their mental health. But specifically with children, when you feel like your parents are not giving you attention, of course, naturally, you're going to go to your friends and confide in them and tell them things. And even in school, you may not feel like you have anyone to confide in. So that's when a lot of these emotions start to ruminate within. And that is the reason why a lot of children start to pick on others and make other people feel insecure about themselves because of the things that they're going through on the inside and also at home. And when you get to that space where you start to daunter on other people and try to intimidate them, make them feel, insecure about themselves, when you bully other people, that becomes an issue. So getting to the stages of where a person becomes a bully or teases and taunts other people, wants to make fun of others, and then it's also online, those are issues that really, really can blow out of proportion. And not only for the school is it a big issue, it's also a big issue for the children, because nowadays technology is everywhere. Phones, all these social media platforms that these children can get on and talk about things and have discussions and conversations. But back then, it wasn't no thing in elementary and middle school and all of this foolishness in high school of and all this stuff going on social media. Of course, social media, it just started to rise and get bigger and bigger and bigger as time passed. And of course, I'm sure there's been issues and situations on, social media drama, whatever platform it might have been back then that people have gotten into it, about, or comments and statements that people have made on social media. But now it is a far just tremendously bigger issue than it has ever been. And it's because people like to pick up their phones, they like to make videos, they like to do all of these things, recording and stuff. And sometimes you need to record, sometimes you need to pick up your phone, and sometimes you need to speak if injustices are being done against you. And once a student starts to go through these things, I know how it made me feel in the moment. When I was younger, I just felt so timid, and I felt terrible, to have to go to school and to have to always deal with negative comments being made about me. And once I started to get into school and I started to deal with fights, it just became a regular occurrence for me. And then I started to act out myself. And then I had to change my response and really change my own mindset and realize that the way that I was acting was not okay. Although I was not bullying anyone, I still was trying to be the class clown, trying to, voice my opinion in different ways and getting into arguments with people. It was just something that was frequently done by me because of the fact that I was just so tired of everything that I was going through, that I kind of was influenced by these individuals that were around me. And that's another issue within, schools, of being peer pressured, all these things. And, they have this program, I think it's DARE, DARE. I'm not sure what, the acronym is for, but I remember the officer came to class and, it was in elementary school, and we were talking about, these things, and he was speaking of, fighting and bullying and all of these other issues in elementary school. But now, not only is it in elementary, it's in middle school and in high school and even in college. So, and to have social media added on top of it is just, a whirlpool of issues that never end. So getting back into, the topic of actually dealing with bullying, we've, understood kind of the mindset of what makes a person become a bully. But now let's see how this makes a person feel that is going through this. Usually when a person goes through these things, not only does it hurt them mentally, but it also puts them into a space where they may not feel like they can go to anyone or talk to anyone about these things, because it can be recruiting. Individuals who are bullying can recruit others to do the same. So it can be groups and packs of people teasing and taunting others. It can be just name calling. It can be gossip. All of these things that can go on at the hand of others because of whatever they may be dealing with on the inside that they're insecure about. Or jealousy. That is another reason why people can bully or, say terrible things about others. Jealousy is another big thing. So for the students that's dealing with this, it's hurtful. You can go home, you can cry, you can tell your parents, you can even tell the teacher, but no one can really understand how that makes you feel as a child, to have to go through bullying and people mocking your appearance, people trying to fight you, put their hands on you, insulting you, especially on social media. Cyberbullying was another big thing that was, talked about back then in elementary school, as I started to get older, because, they made it aware to us that, of course, when you make a statement on the internet, it's always there forever, and you are responsible and you will be held accountable for the things that you say. And although, like I say, social media platforms were not, as big for a whole bunch of elementary students to be, talking about these things. And, even in middle school, it started to get even bigger and bigger with social media. But it's just the simple fact that people use social media not only to gossip, to have conversations with their friends, to follow their friends, all these things, but social media just adds to the drama, where people are on their stories, people do lives and all these things. They make videos, and it just adds to the drama that simply that it just doesn't need to be. And going into school is the simple fact of learning, getting an education, graduating elementary, middle school, high school. If you decide to go to college, that is your decision. But all of these things are stages, and in each stage, you get older, you get more mature and wiser. And a lot of these individuals, they carry the same mental ideas, and they have the same emotions, all of these things that carry on, that add on and dogpile on, and they just start to ruminate on the inside. So for anyone that's dealing with bullying, your first thought is, okay, let me go to the teacher, let me tell them what is going on. But teachers back then, they would brush things under the rug. And of course, I understand that teachers can be stressed out. They may be getting underpaid and having so many students to deal with that have bad attitudes, that are disrespectful. It's not fun to be a teacher with students who don't care and who are disrespectful and nasty. But at the end of the day, you choose your job, you choose to teach students, and of course it can be your passion to teach, but at the end of the day, you have to understand everything that comes with being a teacher. So if one of your students is making disruptions in your class, or you're having issues with them, you do your due diligence to make sure that is handled so there is no disruptions in your class. But some teachers let the students walk all over them. And in cases of bullying, if a student comes to you and lets you know of a situation that is going on, you should be there to help them. You should be there to stop it right then and there. Whatever principal, assistant principal, admins, whatever they call them, I don't know. But all I do know is that it should be handled with higher authority. So, students can do whatever the hell they want. And now you have issues with the teachers, not caring. They're tired of their jobs anyways, and they just want to, just let things go under the rug. So then it continues to go on and on and on, and then a fight breaks out, and then now it's become an issue, and it's like, okay, I told the teacher, they didn't really do anything about it. And then now a fight has, occurred where now you have to be interrogated by individuals and express, how a person might have been bullying you, or how a situation might have started, things like that. So you go from that stage, then you may even have told the principals, you may have told people, of a higher authority, and they may say, oh, we'll handle the issue, but that doesn't really stop people from doing what they want to do. And when you have parents who are not involved and who are not knowing of what their children are doing, or don't even care, the parents can literally, allow their children to do a whole bunch of different things and get away with things, and nothing is ever done about it. They're not going to, they may beat their children, they may curse their children out, but, it's not any actual authority in the household that is loving, respectful, and kind towards their children, but also demanding that, respect from their children. And it has to be a mutually loving relationship, not of you just being an authoritarian, but you letting them know, I love you, I'm going to always support you, I'm going to be here for you, let us communicate with each other, and you still have to respect me as your parent. That's not in the case of what these bullies, that's not what their parents think. Their parents, they don't care. They already feel like their children are a headache to them enough. They don't care what their children do. And like I said, their children can do all these different things, and they may beat the children, but that does nothing. So once you have the teacher that doesn't do anything and the parents don't seem to care, then you have principals that they don't really seem to care either. Situations and all these issues they have to deal with as well. And that's another thing. Like, I understand for any school that issues fights, drama. It can happen between students and even in like workplaces or just in everyday life. There are situations that can occur where you have mishaps or arguments with people because of their actions or the things that's going on. But in a school system, in a setting where you are supposed to be learning to get an education, to seek higher education if that's what you so choose, the focus is not drama and mess and high school relationships and all of these things. None of this matters at all. So that is your priority as a school, to make sure that those things do not affect or influence someone's school performance. You should not have your students in a school where all of them are supposed to be learning, but they decide to be making social media videos all day and arguing in the classroom and fighting and all of these crazy things. It is your duty as a principal, assistant principal, as a school system to make sure that not only your kids in the school, because they are your responsibility. They are your responsibility. At the end of the day, these are like, your kids in a sense. No, you cannot force them, to act a certain way or to do certain things, but in your school, you are having these students attend with the ultimate, goal of graduating. You have the obligation to allow these children to learn in a setting and to be able to go with whatever curriculum that they decide and, clubs and all of these things. You want to make this experience enjoyable for them and to basically, be present and, overseeing all of the, duties of you as a principal and the school itself, making sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing to ensure a good year, a good, semester for the students in this school, to make sure that they're getting their education, that none of these issues are present. But principals nowadays, a lot of them become overwhelmed. They don't care. They want to sweep things under the rug. They don't understand that issues can continue to go on and on and on. And writing people up, all of these things, it's just not that simple nowadays, where students feel comfortable to be able to disrespect teachers, disrespect not only their parents, themselves as well, and disrespecting other people. That's a big issue. So when parents express their concerns for their children getting bullied, you cannot in any way, shape, or form make them feel as though their reactions or responses are, not feasible. Because if it was your child, I'm sure you would be 10 toes behind them. You would stand behind your child if you are a good parent, of course. So, in a school, obviously, of course, like I say, in regards to their, in a way, like your children, no, you cannot know what every single child is doing in this school, but you still have an obligation over them to make sure that they're all safe, that everything is good, and you are having the parents, entrust that you as a principal will do your due diligence to make sure that everyone can get their education. So you have a responsibility over the school and everything pertaining to it. Of course, things can happen in schools. No, you do not control the actions of a student, but how you go about handling a student's actions and how you respond to the parents, how you, not only educate your staff, but the students with issues with bullying and drugs and all of these different things that are a big issue. As a principal, you need to be all the way with it and dedicated to your job and to your duties, because it's not an easy job to have. It genuinely is not. So going more into a student, and their parents, coming to the schools, or parent teacher conferences, all these things. These are things that happen all the time, and the school systems, everyone genuinely fails these kids, and individuals have to be pulled out of school and put into online schools because of how ruthless and reckless these children are in the school system. And the principals and all of the staff, they feel like, well, I can't do anything about it, I can't control their actions, and all these different things. So let them just run amok. That's just how they just become so overwhelmed, and they don't feel like dealing with it anymore. So they continue to allow individuals who are repeat offenders, who have continuously had issues in school, and bullying cases, and all of these things, they continue to allow it to go on and on and on again. Something has to be done. You have to stop these types of things. You have to have security, officers in the school, people who are here to help not only make this place safer, but to dissolve issues and to handle issues and investigate them properly. So, dealing with, bullying, the best options is always, of course, to go to the teachers, go to the principals, go to the schools, document whatever you have to document. If you have to go to law enforcement, do whatever you have to do. Make sure your parents are supporting and helping you and are communicating everything with the school. Times, dates, everything documented, and conversations, all of these things are important, and especially dealing with issues in school with bullying. You always want to not only take time for yourself to process the things that you've been through, but to not internalize it and to not allow other people to make you feel insecure or terrible about yourself. Because that's something that, a lot of us have dealt with terrible people. Because it's not just kids, it's just people in general. And, even as a child, when you start to bully and hurt and harm others and physically injure them and say terrible things about them, you lose your innocence. You lose that aspect of, being a child, and you start to become someone much more reckless and much more violent and terrible, not only in your words, but in your actions. And of course, you're a minor. And of course, in cases with juveniles and individuals who are issues in schools, of course, that should be handled accordingly. But mainly, the thing to understand is, for you as a person in life, you have to not only stand up for yourself, you have to know how to defend yourself, but you also have to be very, very intellectually, stimulated, and to not allow others to manipulate you or to make you believe things about yourself or about others, or to twist your words around, because that's another thing that a lot of schools can do. They want to make situations die down so it doesn't become bigger than what it is. But there are so many issues that have occurred in schools alone, and it's quite shocking and it's quite sad of what children are capable to do to others. So, of course, always, document everything and just take time for yourself. Of course, it's hard to deal with, but always, hold your strength, confidence, and be secure within yourself. Because if you're not secure within yourself, or you allow others to make you feel insecure, you will be broken and truly hurt. And it's understandable for any kid to not have that understanding of the way the world works. But you have to, your parents, they need to be letting their children know of these things that's going on in the world, so these issues can be understood, so the child does not feel alone, so the child does not go through things of suicide or feel uncomfortable or feel bad about themselves. And if you don't have parents that are very supportive or that are understanding, there's always someone out there, counselors, anyone that you can reach out to. that's just always important to make sure that your mental health is good first, so that you don't have any suicidal tendencies, so that you're not dealing with issues in the school, because children at very young ages are committing suicide, and it is so sad and it's terrible, and something needs to really truly be done about it. Programs need to be set up in schools to make awareness for all of the students, every single student. They need to take classes not only in regards to social media awareness, but also to bullying. Every student needs to understand the consequences of bullying and how their actions can affect others, and if these students need to seek help or need to have conversations, to have individuals like psychologists, counselors, people who can bring these students therapy and healing to help them. That's a very important thing. So that wraps up today's topic, and soon I'll be talking about more things, but thank you all so much for listening, and have a beautiful day or night. Bye.